Hello, I am Sekolile Timothy and I am an attorney.
Hi, I am SchoemanLaw and I'm an attorney, conveyancer, notary public and mediator. We both practice as such here at SchoemanLaw Incorporated, based in Cape Town, South Africa, where we proudly serve the legal needs of the entrepreneur.
Well, today we're going to be speaking about shareholders agreements. What these agreements are, what are the key provisions that need to be included in them, and why you actually need one. Now, a shareholder agreement is an agreement that regulates the relationship between the shareholders, as the name suggests, and it's different from a memorandum of incorporation, or an MOI as many like to call it, which is the founding document of the company that sets out the rules of conduct in the company itself and may include some provisions relating to shareholders. But it is important that you have a separate MOI and a separate shareholders agreement to deal with the relationship of the shareholders.
It's further important that you know what goes where in these documents themselves. So in a shareholders agreement, you may typically see aspects such as preemptive rights or provisions relating to forced exit, as we call it. So how do you get out essentially of the arrangement, the exit strategy, the procedures surrounding them, and when life's unforeseens happen, what happens to your shares? So for example, on the death of a shareholder or the liquidation of a shareholder, those would typically be your exits that you cannot control and wouldn't be deemed a voluntary exit, but rather something that happens and needs to trigger a process. The voluntary exits, though, also follow a process, and those are all then grouped together under the relevant headings. You'll also see things relating to funding provisions. So instead of going to the bank or getting an overdraft immediately, your shareholders would be expected in the proportion of their shareholding to fund the company when it needs to be, before you look at other funding mechanisms or bringing more people on board for that purpose. So that is quite important, because that could also be a very sensitive topic to broach, perhaps when times are tough and cash injection is needed urgently. And then last but not least, your return on investment or the dividend policy of the company. That is really important. When will dividends be declared? And of course it's regulated by law to a large extent, but perhaps there are special arrangements, maybe a buffer fund, if for lack of a better word, that you would like to build, a retention fund. And when that has reached a certain point, then we can talk about splitting the money and really doing business responsibly and safely.
So the manager businesses has more than two or more people who are shareholders in the company, then it is imperative that you enter into a shareholders agreement. As Nicolene has outlined, this will deal with what happens in the situations such as an exit, the death of a shareholder, if a shareholder becomes insolvent. Both parties or more need to know the mechanisms that will come into play once this becomes the situation. And not having these mechanisms in place costs a lot of money, because it's going to require both parties to have to litigate to find the answers to these questions that can be simply housed in a shareholders agreement. So it is important to have this agreement, as it will also regulate the dividends policy, as you said, and those funding provisions to limit essentially the conflict between the shareholders. And when there is such a conflict, it would also deal with how it is to be resolved. So essentially it is important in strengthening and improving actually the relationship of the shareholders to ensure that they're able to help run the company as smoothly as possible.
So in case you need any more information on this very broad topic, please navigate to our website at www.schoemanlaw.co.za, where you'll find articles, a free monthly newsletter, a podcast channel, all of which are free. We also do radio on a regular basis and upload our podcasts there. Alternatively, feel free to leave your comments, likes and shares in the comment box below. Let us have your questions or concerns possibly. And then of course, if you are in the position of having to execute your first shareholders agreement, you can find one at our SchoemanLaw SME self-service desk at under 600 Rand. and it's professionally constructed, so no compromise in the quality. The professional here at SchoemanLaw constructed it, and you can customize it to your liking, download it and implement it, supported by a range of free resources to ensure that you sign correctly on the dotted line. So, until next time, thank you for tuning in.
Thank you.